I'm VJ Hamilton and welcome to the Autoimmune Reset, the place for you to learn how to thrive with autoimmune disease and feel empowered to take steps to transform your health to feel better than ever. You can start making changes today to improve your health. So with every episode, my mission is to share with you simple ways to up-level your diet and lifestyle with key learnings from my own journey reversing autoimmune disease and inspirational stories from those who have reset their autoimmune symptoms and are now thriving in life. I suffered from autoimmune disease for over 25 years and now I live symptom-free, and I wish the same for you as well. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Autoimmune Reset podcast. I'm your host, VJ Hamilton. I'm a nutritionist, scientist, and expert in autoimmune disease. And today we're diving into something I've personally been revisiting, and that is fasting. Now, fasting has gained so much traction in recent years, and for good reasons. It can reduce inflammation, reset your metabolism, support immune balance, and even promote cellular regeneration, which we know is so vital in certain autoimmune conditions like multiple sclerosis. But it's not a magic bullet, and it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all. So in this episode, I'm going to walk through the different types of fasting and when autophagy actually kicks in and what autophagy means. We'll talk about how fasting can support weight loss, inflammation, and even aging. We'll talk about why it works for some but not others, and that can be frustrating for people when they try it and it doesn't work for them. We'll talk about how to fast with your menstrual cycle. It's a question I get asked all the time. What to consider if you have an autoimmune condition, because certain fasts can actually trigger issues, especially if you have MCAS, fatigue, or post-viral symptoms. I'm going to be sharing my experience with the Fasting Mimicking Diet. I'll be sharing practical tips for hunger and cravings, and I'll be mentioning a documentary that you can go and watch if you are interested in this subject, which I will link to in the show notes. So let's get started. What is fasting, and what are the different types of fasting that you can try? I'm going to be sharing my experience today, my experience in clinical practice as well. But if you are considering fasting for yourself, then it is worth speaking to a registered health practitioner to understand whether this is right for you or not, because it's certainly not right for everyone. It depends on your current health status, your medical history, your family history. Lots of different factors need to be taken into account, but there are some ways that you can incorporate it in a gentle way as well, because I think when you hear fasting, you think about restriction and it can sound like a very scary word, but I'm going to be going through ways that you can incorporate it quite easily into your life without doing anything too extreme. So first, let's talk about what it means when we talk about fasting. So there are a few common approaches. One is time restricted eating, and this is when you eat within a set window, so say 8 hours, and then you're going to be fasting for 16 hours. You're still eating every single day, just within a shorter window. And for most people that I work with, they will start with a 12-hour time restricted eating window, and then they will extend that once they get more comfortable with that. So they might stop eating at 7 p.m. and then have their breakfast at 7 a.m. to start with, and then we extend the window depending on how well they're doing with it. There's also intermittent fasting, and this could mean eating normally for say 5 days and then fasting for 2, like the 5-2 approach. The 5-2 approach can also be when you're having less calories on those 2 days of the week. Or you can do a full 24-hour fast, say once or twice a week, and I've seen that work well for some people as well. Obviously your body needs to be ready for that, but just having that one day off where you're fasting, as long as your body is able to regulate your blood sugar and is in a good state to be able to manage that, then that can have a lot of benefits, but it's certainly not for everyone. Then there is an extended fast or a multi-day fast, and this typically can last anywhere from 3 to 5 days or even longer. And as part of this type of fasting, you have only water, you might bring in some electrolytes as well, or you just have very minimal calories. And this is much more intensive and certainly not suitable for most people, especially if you're listening to this with a chronic illness or autoimmune condition. And then lastly, we have the fasting mimicking diet. And when I started getting into fasting, this is the diet that I followed the most. And it was many years ago now, looking back, it was at least over 5 years ago that I started getting into fasting. It's probably more like 2018 actually. And I really, enjoyed doing the fasting mimicking diet. And I will speak more about this as we move through the episode. But it's a 5-day structured program that mimics the effect of fasting while still providing small nourishing meals. So you are still eating. And it is designed to trigger autophagy, which is the important element in fasting, without the stress of the full food restriction. And there's a set protocol that you can buy called ProLon, and I will put some more information about that in the show notes, but you just follow that for 5 days. They actually have an organic version now as well, which is great. And I not only love it because of the health benefits that you get from doing it, but also that I feel so productive. By the 4th day, I feel so energized, and I just get a lot of time back when I'm doing it as well. And I recently did ProLon again. I haven't done it for many years, but I decided to start doing it again, especially now they have the organic version. And I was monitoring my heart rate variability and my stress levels through my Aura ring, and everything improved. So it's just even more evidence that this does work and this is beneficial to your body. But each method has a different effect on your body. It depends how long you fast, how nourished you are going in, and your personal health status as well. And that makes a big difference. So let's talk about this word autophagy and what actually happens when you fast, because one of the most exciting things about fasting is that it activates autophagy. And this is your body's built-in repair system, because autophagy literally means self-eating. It's how your body breaks down old damaged cells and recycles them into new components, and it's vital for reducing inflammation. It can help clean up dysfunctional mitochondria, and the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cells. They are what produce, energy in your body, and often when there is mitochondrial dysfunction, that can lead to oxidative stress, it can lead to inflammation, it can lead to neurological issues as well, and issues in other organs too, even autoimmune liver disease. And this is certainly a risk factor in autoimmune conditions and chronic inflammatory issues as well. But as well as that, autophagy has been shown to help to support immune regulation and can maintain long-term metabolic health. So it can help you regulate your blood sugar again. And this is one of the reasons that the fasting mimicking diet was produced. It was focused on diabetes and helping with blood sugar regulation. So let's talk about when autophagy kicks in, because this is important, because generally autophagy starts to activate around 16 to 18 hours into a fast and becomes more significant the longer the fast continues. And that's where those extended fasts can be helpful, particularly around 24 to 48 hours. And that's why the fasting mimicking diet, which has the effect of mimicking a fast in your body for 5 days, that's when you're going to get even more benefit from doing it. And this is one of the key ways fasting can help with weight management too, because it's not just by reducing calories, but by helping the body burn more stored fat. It can help reduce visceral fat and improve metabolic flexibility, which is absolutely key when you are managing your weight. Your blood sugar regulation needs to be optimal if you are looking to lose any weight in particular. And I have a lot of clients coming to me and they will gain weight and find it really hard to lose weight. And when we rule out things that are linked to their thyroid health or the kind of more obvious things of why that's happening, I think this is a massive factor when your body isn't able to regulate your blood sugar as well. And that certainly can happen in perimenopause and menopause. Blood sugar regulation becomes more difficult because of the transition and the change in hormones. And this is really important, autophagy is nutrient sensitive. So if your body doesn't have enough of the certain cofactors like vitamin D, which a lot of people with autoimmune conditions and chronic illness have low vitamin D, autophagy can stall. And that's where things get really interesting. So you may find that you have friends who have done fasting and it's really worked for them, and then some people don't do very well with fasting. And that is because it's to do with your current health status as much as anything else. And if you've noticed that when you're fasting, you're not getting any of the benefits that you'd expect, like your brain isn't sharper, your skin doesn't feel clearer, you don't feel lighter and calmer. Like I mentioned, when I was tracking it with my Oura ring, I noticed that my heart rate variability improved, my stress levels improved. But if that isn't happening to you, and actually if you start feeling more anxious, you feel inflamed, you feel awful, foggy and fatigued, then it might be that your nutrient status isn't where it needs to be to go into a fast. And that's why some people might react differently to fasting than others. And here's the reason: that autophagy needs vitamin D to work, specifically the 1,2,5 dihydroxyvitamin D. Fasting can actually make you less able to activate it, because vitamin D needs to be activated in the body using an enzyme in the liver called CYP2R1. And this is often what happens in the body. We have one version of a nutrient and we need to activate it so our body can use it. But fasting and diabetes actually suppresses this enzyme, so you make the less active form of vitamin D. At the same time, fasting increases another enzyme called CYP24A1, and that breaks down both the storage and active forms of vitamin D. So if you're already running low on vitamin D, or your tissues have trouble accessing it, and that can be a genetic issue as well, fasting may not trigger the repair mechanisms you're hoping for, especially if you're dealing with chronic illness or inflammation. And since the 1-HD type of vitamin D has a shorter half-life of just 4 to 6 hours, you really need enough of it in the right places for autophagy to happen the way that you want it to. So how can you work around this? Well, there are various things that you can do. As I mentioned earlier, working with a practitioner is absolutely key, but you can make sure that you have a higher load of vitamin D before you go into a fast, and just make sure that your levels are optimal before going into a fast. And you won't be taking any of these nutrients whilst you're fasting anyway, so taking a slightly higher dose of vitamin D if you are supplementing vitamin D might be something to consider. And you can also take perilla extract during the fast, and this helps to block that enzyme that breaks down vitamin D, so it preserves 1,2-HD, which is the active form of vitamin D inside your cells. And this can be especially helpful if you're someone who hasn't responded well to fasting in the past, or if you have an autoimmune condition and want to get more out of the repair benefits. I would say test your vitamin D levels in advance. And when I look back at when I started fasting and it wasn't working for me, I expect this was a factor because I do have genetic variations in my vitamin D genes as well. So I do need a higher amount of vitamin D in my body compared to the next person in order to get the full benefit from the vitamin D that I get from the sun, but also my food. So let's now talk about hormones and fasting in the menstrual cycle, because if you menstruate, fasting can affect your cycle for better or worse, depending on when and how you do it. So generally, in the follicular phase, which is normally between day 1 and day 14, this is when your body tends to tolerate fasting best. So if you are planning on doing the fasting mimicking diet, then this is the time to be doing it. Your estrogen is rising, your insulin sensitivity is better, and your energy is usually higher. However, when you go into ovulation, some people might feel good fasting around this time, but others find it better to ease up. So just follow the cues from your body around this time. Then we have the luteal phase. This is between about day 15 and 28. And this is where fasting often backfires because the progesterone makes you more insulin resistant and more prone to blood sugar drop. So it's probably not the best time to do it. And this is when you're going to need grounding, consistent meals, focusing on nourishment rather than restriction, especially if you're dealing with fatigue, anxiety, or you have a history of PMS. And then we have the menstruation, when you have your period. This can go either way, and some people might feel good fasting around here, especially in the first day or two. But if you're depleted, then it might be time to focus on nourishment during this phase as well. And you can plan out when you would like to do a fast, have a look at your cycle, decide when's going to be a good time for you. And I have people ask me all the time, should I start incorporating fasting? When should I do it? And the truth is, because it is a stress on your body, it is having a benefit by doing it. It's stimulating autophagy, but it is a stress on your body. So you want to be looking at a time where you're not going to be doing too much, you're not putting a lot of stress on your body, and you're also at the right stage in your cycle in order for your body to manage going into a fast much better than it would otherwise. So let's talk about fasting and autoimmune disease, because fasting can help with many autoimmune conditions. There's been studies around multiple sclerosis, it's been shown to help with rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, and in some instances Hashimoto's. Although there is a debate around Hashimoto's, it can certainly be helpful for a lot of autoimmune conditions. But fasting can also worsen symptoms if your immune system is already on high alert, which it can be with an autoimmune condition. So for example, in MCAS, or where you have histamine overload, fasting can raise cortisol and lower the DAO enzyme, which is so important for clearing histamine from the body. That means that your histamine levels could increase. You might experience more symptoms like flushing or headaches or anxiety or skin issues, and that is the result of having more histamine in the body due to fasting. If you have adrenal dysfunction, fasting can spike adrenaline and blood sugar swings. It can actually leave you feeling really shaky and exhausted. If you ever feel like that during a fast, then I'd certainly recommend eating. And in long COVID or post-viral fatigue, where the mitochondria are already under strain, then fasting might deplete you even more. And those mitochondria do need the nutrients. As much as we want to regenerate them and restore them, in the short term, we really need to be giving them the nutrients in order to provide energy for us. And that's where fasting probably isn't going to be the right thing. And when clients start working with me and they have lots of symptoms, I mean, that's why they reach out to me. I'm not going to be recommending fasting at that point, because we need to make sure that their body is in a strong position, that they're fully nourished. And 9 times out of 10, when I'm working with a client, they have many nutrient deficiencies that need to be addressed in the short term, and then we can start thinking about doing some form of fasting. And that's really what happened with me as well. I was feeling so much better by the time that I started fasting. I also did the ketogenic diet. I tried quite a lot of different things, but I did really get into fasting at one point, and I've done the Fasting Mimicking Diet, which is also known as ProLon, multiple times over the years. As I said, it's a structured 5-day program that gives your body the signal of fasting while still feeding it in small amounts of food. And that's why I like it. You're still eating, you're still keeping those good food habits, but at the same time, I've always felt the benefit of doing ProLon, and it's just a great time for me to be productive as well. And rather than spending lots of time cooking, I go on walks or I do more exercise. And I personally like to do fasting in the summer months or the summer months, because the only thing that I've experienced when I've been on fasting is I feel very cold, and if I do it in winter, I just feel too cold doing it. Even if the heating's on, it's just going out walking the dogs. I feel like I constantly need to be having baths because it's kind of cold to the bone. So that's why I prefer doing it in the summer. But I recently tried it again, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. It felt easier on my system than it used to. And I saw some nice shifts in energy, clarity, and digestion. And because they now do an organic range, I really enjoyed the food, to be honest, and the teas. And as I said, I got a lot of time back. So if you want to try it, then I am going to put some information about ProLon in the show notes so you can have a read about it. But if you are thinking about doing fasting and you're worried about cravings, because what you don't want is to be doing, say, the Fasting Mimicking Diet and feeling hungry the whole time. And I know when I was doing this a lot myself, some of my family members did it, and one of them said that he just felt hungry all week, and you don't want to be craving food all week, and that's certainly not how I feel when I'm doing it. And that's why with any type of fasting or any type of protocol, we need to use our own intuition and listen to our body as much as we can. And if it's not right for you at that moment in time, then it's absolutely fine to stop what you're doing and just go back to your old eating patterns, and then do it more slowly or more gently. And that again is why it's good to work under the guidance of a practitioner or a nutritionist who can help with that. But if you are worried about cravings, then here are a few tips about how you can consider doing fasting but not have as many of the side effects. One is to make sure that you stay fully hydrated, because water is absolutely essential. You can also drink some herbal teas, and some people will drink coffee as well. I don't like that as much, but some people will. I think actually taking the caffeine out of the diet is probably a good thing to do while you're fasting as well. But staying well hydrated, you can add electrolytes as well, and that's just going to make it a lot easier. You're not going to feel as hungry. Hopefully that will make you feel more satiated. And when the hunger comes in waves, it's going to peak and then pass. So have something that you can do when you're feeling hungry. I might start doing some exercise. I might go for a walk outside. I might start actually doing some cleaning or doing something in my house. It just distracts me. And within, say, 5 minutes, that thought has completely gone. And for me, I just feel really productive. So I might do some writing or something that I enjoy doing. And then by the time I'm thinking about it again, I actually don't feel that hungry anyway. And with the fasting mimicking diet, you still do eat. Keeping your mind busy by reading, journaling, as I said, decluttering can be a great way to keep your mind busy. And if you have a list of things that you've been meaning to do, then your fasting week, if you do the fasting mimicking diet or you incorporate any type of fasting, then have that list of jobs that have just been there for ever, and then you can start going through them, start clearing things out, and I know a lot of people are putting like clothes on Vinted or filling up some charity bags with clothes. I love doing that, several times a year. Just cleansing really my environment around me makes a big difference, and I tend to do that when I'm doing more of a fast or I have more time when I'm not cooking as much. And also avoid food triggers. So don't hang out in the kitchen or start watching programs about food. It's probably not the right time to be doing it because that is going to trigger cravings. And one of the things that I actually quite like doing is when I'm doing the fasting mimicking diet, when I'm doing ProLon, when it gets to day 4, then I'm starting to think about what I'm going to be buying for food. I might start writing out some recipes. So for me, that actually helps just to know that by it's normally I'm doing it Monday to Friday, but by the Saturday I'm going to be eating again, and I start kind of planning my meals out. And again, it just gives me that space and that time where I can start doing meal planning, and then gets me back into that good routine of meal planning again. And because I know so many people, when they're making changes for their health and making changes to their diet, they always say the more prepared they are and the more that they prep their meals, the easier it is, because it just takes out all that headspace during the week if you have everything prepared on a weekend. And so again, this can really help with that. But before I finish, I did want to share with you a documentary that really helps to tie everything together. Again, I've put the link to that in the show notes, and it follows Professor Valter Longo, and he is the creator of the fasting mimicking diet. And it explores how modern food industry, much like big tobacco, is fueling a health crisis through diets that accelerate aging and drive dependency on certain medications. So it highlights a hopeful path forward, showing how fasting and plant-based nutrition can actually help the body repair itself and potentially reverse biological aging. So it's really fascinating, and you'll hear experts in fasting and nutrition and genetics. You'll hear Longo's personal story and research. You can also buy his book. I love his book. And he is talking about communities around the world with the highest health spans, which really fascinates me as well. And it's narrated by Edward Norton, and he's one of my favourite actors. So, and I really like his voice. So he's doing the documentary. So it's worth listening to that if you are new to this and you want to find out more about fasting and how it can be beneficial. But as I say, I find not only is there a lot of research now around the health benefits of fasting and autophagy, but just the time it gives me back. Now, even when I'm not doing the fasting mimicking diet, I do fast generally most of the time to a certain extent. So I'm doing that time restricted eating, and I'll eat when I want to. If I wake up and I'm hungry, I'm going to be eating breakfast at say 8 a.m. If I wake up and I don't feel hungry, then I'll be getting my work done. I might do some exercise, might do other things, and not eat until midday. And I just listen to my body now, but it's taken me a long time to get to that place. So it might be better to do something structured for you first, and then you can just sense when your body needs food and when it doesn't need food. And at the end of the day, if you are prone to autoimmune conditions or chronic illness, nourishing your body is number one. These are add-ons that are going to accelerate your health progress, but at the same time, nourishment is absolutely key. So I would never forfeit a decent meal when you need it for fasting. It's just that this can add to any improvement that you've already had. And if you are only eating, say, 2 meals a day, you need to make sure that they are full of nutrients and that you're getting all the nutrients that you need in those 2 meals, which is especially important in autoimmune conditions. But when thinking about conditions like alopecia, which is reliant on protein and certain cofactors for the hair to grow, then you really need to be nourished as a number one, and this is just an add-on. So whether you're using fasting to support your immune health, reset your metabolism, or you just want to feel more like yourself again, then it's key to do it in a way that's informed and strategic, and that means knowing your baseline, knowing how well your body reacts to fasting and how much you can push that, timing it with your hormones, making sure that your nutrient status is optimal before going into fasting, and choosing the right fasting style for you if you do want to explore it. And if you give the Fasting Mimicking Diet a try or take any of the insights from today into your routine, then I'd love to know how you got on. You can either pop over to my Instagram account, which is at the Autoimmunity Nutritionist, or at the Autoimmune Reset, or you can join my free group, which is the Autoimmune Forum. I'm sharing lots of information over there. We're doing a whole series on lowering your toxic burden this month as part of Plastic Free July. So feel free to pop over and join us over there. But as well as that, we're sharing lots of information about autoimmune conditions, healthy foods for autoimmune conditions, and it's just a great community, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And I love that people are just chiming in and helping each other out with the problems that they're raising in the group. So I'd love to see you over there. If not, have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Autoimmune Reset. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you liked it, I would hugely appreciate a review on iTunes, as it helps me understand what you like about the podcast and to help share the information with more people. I'm excited to speak to you next time, and remember, you have the power to take the reins on your health. So keep the faith and celebrate the small wins. Until next time.